Good afternoon. This is Chris Edelman, known as Sean, of course. Today we're going to talk a little bit about proofs. I haven't done these videos in years, but I think I'm going to start doing more of these because I think that it's much more educational to hear and see pieces and talk about sort of why they are the way they are and some stories behind them and so on and so forth. So I picked proofs as my first new video because it's probably the newest thing that I got into that I swore up and down I would never get into. But anyways, and so, one of the things that was very impactful on me as a kid is going into the store and seeing the figures hanging on the shelves or hanging on the hangers and looking at the art and all this other kind of stuff. But there's a pretty detailed process, as you can imagine, that went into sort of the development of those card backs. And, because if you think about it, they include so many different things. The art is one thing, of course, but, where's the hole punch going to be? What's the size of the background and type of color? Where's it going to be? So on and so forth. So it's a pretty interesting process. There's a great book out there, A New Proof, that really gets into this stuff in a little bit more detail. There's elements of this in other reference books. Kellerman has a small introduction to it, and a number of others. But anyways, what I'm going to talk about is what I probably would refer more to a press proof, or sort of the final design after all the changes have been made, and sort of the different ways that it was presented. These are, of course, pre-production, two-dimensional collectibles that some of us like, some of us don't like, but the market for such has really gone up over the last decade, and especially since the early 2000s. But anyways, we'll get into it. So, and I'm sorry, I think this camera I can't get it to reverse the other way, so bear with me with the backwards stuff. But anyway, so this is kind of, this is what we would see on the shelf. You've got your card art where the figure once was. And these were amazing because they were almost perfectly designed. But you always often wonder how did we get to this particular paperweight, design where everything was. And so if you've been in publishing at all, usually you have to do some test runs with colors and sort of where your layouts are. In the world of developing these, they had all the design, but the first sort of printout of what they were going to do is what people know as a chromalin, or you call it a chromalin proof or something of that nature. And that's where you can really look at the vibrant colors of what you're going to produce. You can mark it up and, tell them what changes to make. And then you start producing the actual card backs that are going to be used on the figures. And so, for the first line of Star Wars, thought to be the first press proof that came out, of course, is something of this nature. So this looks like your regular 12A front, but what you'll notice, a couple things, is that all four corners of these are squared. Okay, if you look at the weight of this item, is that the paper that this was printed on was very thin cardstock. And then you turn it over, well, alas, there's nothing there. So this is what's called a blank back or blank back proof, or a blank back press proof, whatever your jargon is that you want to use. But this was thought to be the first example of something that they could hold on to see what's it going to look like, what's it going to feel like when they produce it. There's really, as far as I know, and I think most of the sources of information will say, is that the true nature of this, meaning what was the purpose of it, was really kind of unknown. It was probably just a test run, look at colors, try to figure out cardstock and all this other stuff. The other thing, another theory out there is, of course, because this is a blank back, the machines that were used to print out things back then might not have been able to print double-sided. And so maybe this was just the first layer of the card back, but I'm not going to get into that. You know, that's just something that's out there. But anyways, but this is what the blank back press proof looks like. Again, the key things are there's no hole punch, all four corners are square, and of course the back is blank. So then once that was essentially looked at and finalized, then you come up with what we probably know as the common proof, or the press proof that is probably the most common, certainly the ones we see the most often of, and that's one like this. Now what you can see is the corners are round, so this has been die cut, but the bottom are still sharp edges. There is a punch, but the punch, as you can see it there, is pretty long and it's offset, so it's not really in the right spot. But this was just the initial sort of printing out. Now what these were used for is probably, displays. I think some of these were used to put actual figures on just as a product sort of showing, probably in some catalogs. Another way that they could use these is to look at conceptual design of the card back itself. Now when we look at the back, now this is two-sided now that we have the back, there's a couple of things that were notably different, but the most common thing to look at is that up here it says Tusken Raider. Now on the production 12 back, what you'll see is that it didn't say Tusken Raider, but it says Sand People. Okay, and again, you can also see the location of the punch. It's not quite as long, a little bit taller, and set more over the T, as opposed to the punch that's on this common proof. It's a little bit set off to the left. But anyways, that's what the more common proofs look like. There are a lot of these around, but of each individual, probably, I think they say 5 to 10 or so, but I'm not going to talk about numbers too much, just because anytime you say a number, it always comes back to bite you, because then 10 more are found later on. All right, so that was the 12 back common press proof, or whatever you want to call it. Now, they of course had to make basically a transition, because now that more figures were going to come out, and especially the second 8, they wanted to have a transition of sorts. And so to play around with where that was going, this thing was developed. Now this is the 12 to 20 transition common proof. Again, it's got rounded corners on the top, and then square corners on the bottom. And the differences that you'll note is, one is the LP circle has been airbrushed away, and the price tag here, there's a piece of tape, and basically this was taped over so you don't see it. So they wanted to see kind of what this looks like. Now the hole punch is still the same. It's still that kind of elongated one, a little bit over to the left. But the back is the same as just a normal 12 back. So nothing has changed back here that can be seen, but it was the front, just to see what would the front of this look like. Next, and also the card stock on this was also same thing. It was the same card stock as the 12 back, just a little bit thicker than a normal card back. Now, what's interesting is that when you go to the next set, well, this is the 12 to 20 back transition. Well, the next 20 backs, so there are two 20 backs. Of course, you have the 20 backs without offers. Then you have the 20 backs with offers. Now, the offer that was most notable on the 20 back was, of course, the Fett Offer. So this is a common proof, or common press proof of, once again, the 20 back, but this time with the free Fett applied. Now, what's interesting about these is that I don't think any first 12 figures have ever been found on this particular type of proof. There are chromalins, but there are no proofs like this one of the first 12 that I know of. I've looked, trust me, there's one I want, but it doesn't exist, so I won't be able to get it. And I think part of the reason, or at least part of what's been said, is that because they've already had the regular 12 back proofs, is that it was much more cost efficient to look at those and just apply basically proof stickers like this. This is a proof sticker for the Free Fett over the proofs that were the 12 backs. And so that was a more cost efficient way of, let's say, seeing what the layout is going to be, seeing what it's going to feel like. Then, of course, when you look on the back of this, this is, there's no stickers applied, of course. This is the 20C, and you see all the normal features of that 20 back Fett Offer, which is nice. Now, the last one in the Star Wars series was the 21 back. Now, as far as I know, that there's no 21 backs that are of this style, meaning the round corner top, square corner bottom. They were more of what are called, unfortunately, some are called sample cards or production-like cards, and they were more consistent with what you would see normally, except as a 21 back. One of the ones that was very difficult to find is because not many are really known to exist. I think there are some Lukes out there, certainly the Stormtrooper is out there, and one of the thoughts was that the reason why they're not out there is because they were used in actually making figures. Well, interestingly enough, I actually do have a 21B Stormtrooper card back. This is probably just a normal card back, but these are incredibly hard to find, and some of them supposedly are thought to be the sample cards. But what distinguished them from the other types of proofs is that all four corners were round. Once again, the LP sticker was gone. The white backs, or the white box, was gone. The original sample cards or sample press proofs, whatever you want to call them, are basically unpunched. They don't have any hole punch in them. But some of the Stormtroopers supposedly actually got out and were used and did have the normal features of your card backs. So then, of course, they go into the new offer, and there were plenty of 20 back Fett Offers out there, and so that's when they started applying stickers to go to the next offers. And this is, what you want to call a 20i, 28, whatever you want to designate this, but where they put the Starburst for the Bosk offer on and placed a big sticker across the Fett Offer on the back. So some of the, let's say more uncommon Star Wars card backs would be something like this. This is an R2. This is on a 20A card back. This is another very uncommon MOC to find, but you can see sort of the transition. Once they developed the 20 back, then it was easy to go from the basically 12A front. These are the ones that always have interested me the most. It's a, believe it or not, it's a 21 back, but it has a basically first like 12 back front, meaning the LP stickers here, the white boxes here. There's a very limited number of figures that come on this. This was a very nice example of a card back that I luckily was able to get. But anyways, it's just an example of some of the changes that were made while they were making these card backs. And then, of course, as I've already shown, the Stormtrooper, this is a very uncommon card back. And so I challenge you to find a Stormtrooper on a 21 back card. Anyways, well, that's just a very kind of cursory review on what these types of proofs are. The nomenclature for them kind of is, it's been adopted in such a way that maybe needs to change, but, time will tell. So, we went over the blank back proof. We went over to what's the common proof or the common press proof. We went over the 12 to 20 transition proof. And then finally, there's the 20 back Fett Offer proof, and there's one that I don't have, which is more the sample pre-production card, which were the 21 backs. Anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message. Otherwise, hope you have a great night. We'll talk to you then. Guess what? We're going to do it again. Okay, good night.